But here you go. The first King's College School, Wimbledon International School in Southeast Asia, is located in the heart of Bangkok. It's 5 kilometers from Sathorn and 7 kilometers from Sukhumvit, and it offers a British curriculum with GCSEs and A-levels for children aged 2 to 18 while emphasizing good manners, kindness, and wisdom. I will try to have all of those good manners, kindness, and wisdom as we start this conversation. It's very nice to meet you, Mr. Banyard. How are you today?
Hi, Stephen. It's lovely to meet you. It's a really interesting way. I thought it was just the solid frame with no voice, nothing. Very dramatic way to start. I quite like that. So,
Dude, I wanted to give you gravitas. I wanted to give you emphasis. That was my intent. As I've offered to the other schools, I've given the usual blurb that many people probably have read about King's College. But in your own words, would you mind giving us a little bit more about King's College and what makes it special?
Yeah, so I'm obviously the headmaster of King's Bangkok, and I've had the pleasure of working at King's Wimbledon. I also started their first school in China, their first international school in Hangzhou. So I really understand King's, and I think that our campus is special even within that group because we just have this lovely atmosphere within the school. So both as a headmaster and a dad, I look forward to coming to school every day because you see the children, just their big smiles when they come through the gate, the fantastic parents that we have and support here, and this really lovely sense of community. We're lucky to have sort of obviously a lot of diversity with over 25 different countries represented, but whatever country they come from, they share those values that you talked about. And it just means that we don't have to every morning have that battle with our daughters to get them out of bed and drag them into their uniform. They get up, they bound into their uniform, they rush through their breakfast because they want to come to school. And I think that's what we consistently get from other parents. And I think that atmosphere and buzz we have around the place is something that we're just very lucky to have.
Fantastic. You're right now, everyone who is listening, we are live and we would love to hear your questions. We're talking right now to Mr. Thomas Banyard. He's the head of school, headmaster at King's College. And so, if you would put a question, if you're watching on Facebook or if you're watching on YouTube, put a question in the chat there. We do see it. But I'll start off the questions as well. I know that King's College is relatively new. So can you give us a little bit over, is the entire school open? Are you offering secondary? Are we going all the way through graduation, or where do things stand right now?
Yeah, it's really important. So we started off with early years. We start from children as young as 2 years old in what we call the pre-nursery. And in our first year, last year, we opened until all our primary section. In that section, we have that classroom base for our children. So they have that security. They get to know their teacher that teaches them their core subjects really well, but benefit from a really wide range of specialists as well. This year, so from August 2021, we opened up our senior school. So we currently have age 2 to 15, so all the way until year 10. And then each year we're going to grow with our oldest students. So year 10 will become year 11, then year 12 and year 13. So in 3 more years, we'll have a full school, age 2 to 18. And we've tried to structure that growth so that we do things in stages. Rather than trying to rush and do everything and risk losing the quality, we try to do things gradually and build with our students so that we can build this sense of community without getting too big too quickly.
How does King's, and I know as a parent myself, I've mentioned it earlier today, but I've got 3 kids, they're in primary and secondary. How does King's structure your examination schedule? So, many schools start with sort of learning with play, and it's more about kind of learning as you go and those kinds of things. And then it gets more structured going along. It can get pretty stressful, especially when you get into that IB, sort of, A-levels, O-levels kind of stuff there. What does that look like at King's?
Yeah, because that's the whole journey. So if you think about, most of my job was in my first sort of stages of my career was working with senior students, so age 11 to 18. And at King's Wimbledon, very famous for around 25% going to Oxford and Cambridge. A lot of my role there was helping those children prepare for the best universities. And what are they looking for? Well, you don't need to be a brain scientist to work this out, but it's very important that they're looking for, obviously good academic skills. But maybe 10 years ago, that might have been enough. And now they're really broadening what they're looking for. So they want, yes, good A-levels, or if it's an IB school, good IB grades. They're looking for, yes, good GCSEs. But they're looking for, the whole person now. They're looking for someone that's going to flourish in their university. Just grades, they could go to the university, they could struggle socially, they could fail in their first year, not fail academically, but fail to acclimatise, fail to enjoy their life at university, which is, some of the best years of your life. And so they look for the things that we can add through the co-curricular that say the problem solving, the creativity, the empathy that you need to be a successful person in today's world. And so we build that all the way from early years. And what's lovely is that although I was senior focused to begin with, I've now really enjoyed the last 5 or 6 years of my career working all through schools. And so in the early years, we start actually building the things that make the children successful when they're 18 and beyond. So that's very much a play-based approach for us. So allowing children to have the independence to be able to go and choose the things that they love doing every day, but, nudging them, maybe bringing their interest. Maybe for boys, it might be cars. Maybe for girls, it might be, I don't know, whatever, it might be cars as well. But making sure that we're developing their skills through the play that we have. And that means we have to have these fantastic teachers that really understand the importance of play and the importance of building skills through them. And it also means that we try, sometimes you have this early years approach, which I think most people will now agree is the best way of doing things, of play-based. And then suddenly primary comes year 1, you're 5 and 6, and you find yourself in a formal classroom. And the children find it very hard to transition because it's like night and day. So what we try to do is bring these elements of early years provision, this continuous provision, so having things around the classroom that children can explore themselves, having play-based approach, and time for children just to explore with friends, to turn take, to have this social, never more important than post-COVID. Bringing that up into our primary, and actually our whole focus at the moment, and then through professional development partners, we're working with really top practitioners in the UK to make sure we're bringing in inquiry-based approaches. So children can, instead of just saying today, we're going to learn to paint this exact picture, it might be that we're going to teach them a couple of techniques and then get them to come up with their own questions, get up with their own motivations. And maybe they want to apply those techniques to, I don't know, their passion for unicorns and princesses. They might want to apply it to their passion for plants, because, we've got some lovely gardeners in our school. And they might use those techniques in a way that therefore helps them. Of course, as we get older, they have to do some formalized exams, because otherwise when they get to GCSEs and A-levels, they're going to freak out and it's going to be this huge stress. But, I walked into a class the other day that was doing an end of unit test, and they were, instead of saying, let's cram, let's make sure we've learned all this knowledge, it was, let's do some breathing techniques. Let's look at how we keep calm in a stressful situation. So instead of just having those tests as pass fail for the end of year, which is not at all what we do, but I know happens sometimes in Asia, those tests are learning experiences for the children. So, of course, they're important for us to know how well they've learned the material, but they also teach them how to deal with stress. They also teach them how to structure their revision. We're setting them up for success as they get older. And therefore, exams are just one of the tools that we use proportionally as you get older to help children cope with the demands that they're going to be faced with in adult life.
Fantastic. I want to follow that up. We do have a question in the chat from Daniel Green that ties into something actually you just said. But how do you tie academic success and this path that they're going on to like career pathways? Are there certain programs where you can identify particular careers or point certain students in certain directions, or how does that work at King's?
Yeah, so careers guidance is really important because, of course, careers guidance ties in with A-level and GCSE choices, university choices, and also, teaching the children to discover what they love. So the first thing, obviously, we've got to say is that what we don't try and do, and this is a kind of misconception, is we don't try and say, all right, you're 11, choose what you want to be, and let's get you towards that point. Of course, it's lovely. Sometimes we have 11-year-olds that want to be, I always wanted to be a pirate or an astronaut. And I found out a little bit more about pirates and decided that probably not best for me. Found out that maybe I was a little bit scared of heights. So maybe astronaut wasn't for me. And then sort of you've got to change. It's lovely to have an interest. So what we try and do is say, you're 11 years old, love creative subjects. So we allow them to have activities and part of our curriculum that builds and really lets those interests flourish. But we also try and give them what we call CCAs, so a rotation of different activities every week in the primary school. So they're finding new hobbies and interests. Because if you want to be a doctor, for example, it might not be that you love science to begin with. It might be that you're just very empathetic and love people and want to help, and you find that love of science later on. It might be that you say you want to, for me, be a teacher, but actually you discover later on that your passion is literature. And so we want to give careers advice that helps them to have that flexibility, helps them think outside of a very narrow pathway, because they might only think about engineer, doctor, or certain high-level jobs. We want to broaden that and educate them what else is out there. And we also, frankly speaking, want to make sure that they love learning. That's the most important. Because if you want to be, say, a surgeon when you're older, or a librarian, or whatever it may be, you're going to have to do well in your subjects, which means you have to love the subjects you choose. So for us, that kind of looks like, if I give you a few details, that kind of looks like year 9s, we have a tutor system, and that tutor is really important because it stays with them for many years. And that means that you get this really close relationship so that you know that child really well. So if they say, I love maths, you can say, well, I've looked at your grades for the last 2 years and your effort grades show that you really haven't tried very hard in maths. Do you actually love maths? Or perhaps you're saying what you think I want to hear, because maths is obviously very important in today's world. And so they can very nicely and very gently, in the same way that a really informed mum or dad would do, nudge them towards the subjects that might be appropriate, but also encourage them to think, okay, you're not sure what you want to do. Let's make sure that we focus on some enabling subjects. So you're really interested in English now, so writing's really important. Let's maybe add a history or geography or business studies to encourage you to write a bit more. And then in year 10, we work with an external company. We've actually worked with them in Wimbledon for a long time to do some testing. So they think about the possible careers that are out there. They meet one-on-one with an external careers guidance counsellor. And they're professionals that work, and we help work with this company that we've worked with for a long time. And that's really helpful because it gets children to think about not just what careers, but also what subjects they might love and what those subjects could lead to as well, looking at it from a different way. And then, of course, we give a lot of guidance when it comes to choosing your A-levels. There's parents as well. So that will look like individual meetings with heads of school, with tutors, careers days. We get a huge amount of support from King's Wimbledon. So, for example, in a month, Mr. Andrew Hawes is going to come across, actually towards the end of this month. Time is flying a little bit. I don't even know what month it is at the moment. He's going to come across, and he's going to actually talk to the children in our top years about university entrance and getting them to think ahead of time rather than waiting until, you've got to get your applications out the door. So it's a long journey with us. It's a drip feed. And that obviously involves educating our parents, who might know a lot or might need to have a lot of help with helping advise their children. And we've got to make sure that decision is made with all of us together. Because frankly, if my daughters want to go to America, they're going to find out I can't afford it, and they're going to find out they're probably going to have to think about somewhere else to go. So we need to make sure that parents are on the same track with us as well.
Fantastic. Speaking of time flying, I just can't believe how quickly, 10 minutes. We do have your formal presentation for Kings that we want to say here, but 2 quick questions. So first one is from Michelle, and she's asking, are there any concessions? This is similar to Brighton. Any concessions given to students who are enrolled in Bangkok to further pursue their studies at King's in the UK?
Yes. So obviously, it's actually, I listened to Mike's answer. It's very similar. So we work really, really closely with King's in Wimbledon. We have a curriculum that we've actually taken and developed from King's Wimbledon, and that will help our students make a really, really strong application. But there's obviously no direct transference. I got to go to a very good university, and King's Wimbledon is twice as subscribed to my university places. So it's obviously very competitive to get into, but our children obviously prepared very well. Most of our parents obviously are kind of looking for what you get if you go to one of the best UK schools, but don't want to send their children away and want to keep them in that family environment at home. particularly in COVID, I think that's hammered home to a lot of families. So we get a lot of families like expatriates and also Thai families that maybe wanted their children to board, but now don't want the complications of travel and maybe having to go to quarantine in another country. Oof, I can't imagine that for myself.
Ooh, yeah.
And therefore want that education here where they can rely on the quality, they can rely on the support from the UK. And I think most of our families here will then look to go to the other countries for university and undergraduate and maybe masters.
Okay. Final question for you from Daniel Green. And this ties back to something you said about your campus. Talk to me about the green spaces at King's and then how pollution is managed during air pollution season in Bangkok. Do you have air purifiers? You know, how do you control that environment in this new facility that you guys have? I'm sure it's super modern.
Yeah, no, I've just sadly noticed how awful I am and actually directed my camera at the air conditioner, which is obviously why you put me up, Stephen. Probably not the most idyllic background, but obviously these contain the hospital grade MERV 13 filters. So
Okay.
all of our air conditioned spaces have the filter, which is also very good for COVID because it removes a lot of the particulates in the air. It obviously circulates the air very quickly. So we're very lucky because we've been designed post AQI. Then obviously we've built in this very important infrastructure to make sure we have these indoor spaces that are air conditioned. So the sports hall is air conditioned. We have multi-purpose areas, obviously all the classrooms. We have indoor play areas which are air conditioned and all air filtered. So we monitor AQI like most schools with air visual. Parents can look on their phone, they can see the AQI. We actually have a minute by minute update. So, you know, the AQI hits 150, our primary school children come in. We make sure that that's monitored on a minute by minute. And if luckily it drops down, as it sometimes does in the afternoon, it means they can have their outdoor play. We're all happy. And we make sure that we're doing that as well. Health and safety is obviously really important nowadays, and it always is. And I think now more than ever, schools really need to invest in making sure that they're doing things properly. And that's something that I think we probably benefit of being a new school, because we know what the challenges are. We know how other schools have faced them and dealt with them, and we can do the best possible thing to help the kids.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Mr. Thomas Banyard, you are the headmaster, the head of school at King's College in Bangkok here. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm going to move on to your formal presentation, but I'll remind everyone, we are live. So if you put your question or your comment in Facebook, if you put your question in YouTube, we can see them, and either Mr. Thomas or one of his staff will be happy to follow up with you. And of course, obviously, they can contact your admission staff directly as well. Thank you so much.
Stephen, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much for your time.
Cheers. And with that said, I am now going to move on to the formal presentation from King's. One moment. I just want to make sure it is back in the beginning.
So I've always had a passion for teaching and schools and education. So as soon as I got the chance, I went to work as a teacher and did my qualification. After my first job, I got the opportunity to come to a school that I didn't know very much about then, which was King's College School, Wimbledon. Because King's is one of the most famous schools in the world, one of the most academically successful. And when you work there, you can really see why. During my time there, I got the chance to lead the teaching and learning. And then we started the international school. So I got the opportunity to come to King's Hangzhou, with our first international school, and being part of shaping our first school overseas. And during our time there, I got the opportunity of leading the school in Bangkok. And that's how I've gone from King's Wimbledon to Hangzhou to Bangkok, trying to make sure that every school I work at has that same quality, that same buzz and excitement as King's College School, Wimbledon. The thing that actually we're proudest of is the happiness of the children and the people that come onto our campus. And that happiness comes from a number of different ways. First, it comes with creating this community that are all focused on kindness. It comes from our parents trusting us. That means that, like King's Wimbledon, we aim to get up to and above 90% of our children achieving their first choice university offers. And that comes from preparing them socially, emotionally, and academically from such a young age. We need a lot of help and support through collaborating not just with King's Wimbledon, but also with their global network of schools, whether that's Monaco or their schools in China, or of course the campus in Wimbledon. We have a huge amount of help and support, which looks like daily emails, which looks like our board of governors, which is made up of not just the former chair of governors at Wimbledon, but also fantastic people like their bursar, their head of international. They're like a hand on your back. They help us make sure we're governed in the best possible way. They also do really fun things as well, like teacher collaboration, where we work together across the different campuses to professionally develop our teachers. It also means that our children can go on exchanges to Wimbledon, do summer camps and visit the school. Maybe even in the future, it will involve house competitions across all the different campuses. Whatever it is, our children here really feel the difference. I used to say 3 pillars. So we talk about our academic excellence, which comes from taking the curriculum from King's Wimbledon and adapting it for our context here. We talk about our co-curricular program, which is the activities that children do around their academic timetable, whether that's creative, academic, sporting, whatever it may be. It's those activities they do in their lunchtime, after school or before school. Usually things they're so excited about doing. And our third is perhaps the most important, if I was to choose any 3, is what we call pastoral care. And some people might not have heard that word before, but for us, it's like the first word we use every day. Pastoral care is how we safeguard the happiness and well-being of all the people in our community. It's how we make sure that the children are happy and excited to come to school, how we know them as individuals and make sure they're given the best possible help and support. Mr. Andrew Hawes, the former headmaster of King's Wimbledon, they're the values that he described to summarise what's important about any King's school. And what's really lovely is whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Thailand, China, France, anywhere, these values are the key to what we feel successful education looks like. So one of the things that we're very, very lucky about here is the facilities. And the team we had working on this school, even before I joined, were amazing at taking the best in class from not just Thailand, not just the UK, not just what we do well in Wimbledon, but what is best around the world. So facilities for us have 2 purposes. 1, we need to give children the best opportunities. And 2, we need to help them be happy in their environment. We have some of the best facilities in the world in terms of having Olympic-sized swimming pool to allow the best swimmers to become elite swimmers, but also allowing beginning swimmers like me to enjoy their swimming pool and enjoy the environment. We can have fantastic level of football. We have outdoor basketball and sports court. We have swimming pools for the early years so they can learn to swim from a very young age. We look for the passions of the children and add things like a cooking room, because cooking is so popular with young people and gives them so many different skills that perhaps they wouldn't get elsewhere. And having multi-purpose space around the school so that we can run a really broad and wide range of activities after school so that children can find something they love doing. Important aspect of our school is where we're located and the ease with which parents can get to us. We are a financial district of Bangkok in Rama 3 area at the convergence of 3 expressways. We spend a huge amount of our time making sure that we recruit the best possible teachers from around the world. We make sure that when we interview them, we're not just looking for their skills, their qualifications. Of course, they're important. We're looking for teachers that are smiley, positive, that really love working with children, because we know that that makes such a difference to our young sons and daughters. We then go through another round where we look in depth at how they teach, making sure that the child's at the centre of their plans and how they deliver their lessons. And then the third round, which is really important, is that they're all interviewed by King's College School Wimbledon. And that's the reason why we've got such a fantastic group of staff here that make our children not only happy, but they make a huge amount of progress. And I'm very proud of the teaching staff here.
Why play-based learning is so important for young children is because it allows them to develop their social relationships, their physical skills, and their communication abilities. And certainly post-COVID, without experience of being in a school day in, day out, this is an area where children really need to develop. And it's something that we've really noticed, not only in Thailand, but worldwide. Really early years is about little steps and us taking little steps with the children and bringing them on their journey. And it's really important that we encourage them to be confident. So you'll see in our outdoor environment, in our indoor environment, there's lots and lots of different ways that children can be independent in their learning and supported by the adults around them so that they feel confident and they start to express their own thoughts, feelings and ideas.
They learn through play, they learn through exploring, they learn through problem solving. And those are skills that they start when they're at 2 years old, you know, with their play, and then you develop them as they get older. And to develop them properly, you need to know every single child inside out. You need to know exactly what they need to learn next. It's not about telling them, putting the knowledge into them. It's enabling them to discover a lot themselves. And in the process of doing that, developing the skills that they need for later on in life and moving through the primary school into the secondary school. To be able to communicate with others, you need to have confidence, you need to be able to problem solve, you need to be able to think creatively. So all of those skills are skills that we teach them in the primary school and are central to everything that we do.
The process of preparing our students for the best universities in the world starts straight away when they come into the senior school. So in year 7 and 8, we start to think about careers as part of the PSHE program. And in year 9, we develop on that as well. And we start to think about our IGCSE options. Of course, when they look towards our IGCSE options, they're also thinking about potential careers and potential university admissions as well. So they have a one-to-one meeting with their tutor, and we have a subject choice night where we start to prepare as well. In year 10, the students will have some psychometric testing and a one-to-one follow-up careers interview with an advisor in the UK. We use the same company for the testing and for the one-to-one interviews that King's Wimbledon use back in the UK. As we move towards year 12, we then introduce our university counsellor and the counselling team, who will be able to offer expert advice with the backing and support of King's Wimbledon as well. So we have Mr. Banyard, obviously our headmaster, who teaches physics to the IGCSE students. I teach chemistry to IGCSE students. Mr. Byfield, our head of science, with over 5 years experience at King's Wimbledon. He's coming as our head of science and he's teaching biology. And then Miss Sullivan, who was at Wimbledon as well for over 5 years as well, is coming and is now leads and is head of our maths department as well. But having that strong link to Wimbledon means that we can really push our aspirational students and really develop the same kind of high standards as we have at our mothership as well.
Children feel that when they come to King's, they are going to be valued to be who they are. It means they feel that they can try their best, they can try new things because they're going to be supported, and that their friends will look after them when they fall over or when they maybe get that maths problem wrong. We talk very much about a very simple tagline at the moment, which is shine brighter, go further. Each time they find a little success is like they've shined a little light on inside of them. For us, is to make them shine. It's not about having a few superstars that light up the room like one light. It's about having everyone, whoever they are, visible from their light. It's seeing them in the classroom, which is why we want every single one of them to shine. And when they do, they will go so much further.